Today, I'd like to talk about how to improve our investment in our spiritual capital this year. As we begin a new year, we often reflect on ourselves. We sort of look at what's working, what's not working, what should we keep doing, what should we stop. I know that in my own life, where I've been coaching with hundreds of clients, I would say that most of the goals kind of boil down into two areas: finance and health, if I had to say, and finance obviously involves career. So I think these are good areas to focus on. We need a financial firm foundation so that our needs are taken care of and we can enjoy our life. And financial success can also lead us to be generous to others. So that's an important concern. And we also need a healthy body. It's the vehicle through which we drive through this earth. And the better shape that we're in, the better we can serve others. So the body and the finances, those are important. And they really play critical roles on how we can be useful in the world. But there's a third area of investment that we don't often read about and we don't often consider. And that is investing in our spiritual life. Now, if you believe, as I do, that when it comes to money, you can't take it with you. And when it comes to your body, I've got some bad news. No matter how much you work out and what doctors you have, all of us will lose our physical bodies when we slip out of this body glove and transition to the next life. And while we're here, we have limited time and many things tugging us in many directions. We need to prioritize our health and we need to prioritize our financial well-being. But Jesus in today's gospel gives us clear advice about investing in the longer term investment. He says, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and rats will destroy it, where thieves break in and steal. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Treasures in heaven. How do we make good investments here on earth in our spiritual life? The culture that we live in is a dramatic example of a culture that is not really investing in its spiritual investments. We can see it all around us. Recently, we've watched an increase in the vitriol in our public life and most of our political discussions. We've come to demonize and fear each other. And those epic viral videos that you see, I don't know if you see these, but I see them all the time, of incredibly selfish people losing it on airplanes. Maybe you've seen these too. But it's when I watch it, I think, oh my gosh, how can you be so selfish? Whatever it is, mask, not mask, I don't know what the issue is, but they're so rude and they're so vitriol and there's no spiritual investment in the people around them. But maybe the best measure of our spiritual investment deficit is our loneliness epidemic. We have an epidemic right now where most people report, or a majority, particularly of men, report not having anybody in their life they can confide in. A third of the public says that they're most of the time lonely. So it's a real crisis that we're experiencing here, which has ramifications to the physical world too. People are actually getting sicker based on loneliness. And I think that's a powerful example of not investing in our spiritual life. When I went online, I looked online and I said, okay, give me some suggestions for how to invest in my spiritual life. What I found was that they were more on the evangelical side of things, so that would offer perspective. But at least they were offering something, right? And they were saying things like, read the Bible, pick a chapter of the Bible to focus on, pick a spiritual topic to focus on, read 3 devotional books, record your blessings. And I thought each of these areas of spiritual investment were great. And I don't disagree with any of them. I thought they all made sense. But I also noticed that they were all very individualistic. They were all something that I do by myself for the most part. And I think our culture, from the Protestant Reformation through the Enlightenment, we've created such a focus on the individual that it's really morphed into a consumer culture. And it focuses so much on what we want that we've become lonely. In my opinion, to invest in our spiritual development, we need to invest in community again. Spiritual capital requires investments in each other. Investing in other people not only develops our soul, but it creates a network of people who we commit to being there for, and a network who will be there for us. One of the reasons the early church grew so much was that it was a place that people could get a variety of needs met, including healthcare, financial, all types of support, which we don't really have as much in the church today. The best example of some person that I've seen investing in what I would say is spiritual social capital is a person I've mentioned before, but it's just so striking for me. It has stuck with me. It's the story of a young woman that I've worked with named Rachel. She was a prominent Hill staffer, and at 30, she was pregnant with her first child. And during the successful birth, she became paralyzed with a deadly tumor that was discovered on her spine. And so she was bedridden. And for the next year, her friends created a GoFundMe campaign, and they delivered meals every night for a year. And I took part in that. But what I was so impressed with was delivering meals every night for a year. And that's one of the upsides of technology, something we spoke about last week, where it was an online platform. You click, I'll deliver, here's the address, I'll do it. I was just so impressed with that. So when I interviewed her during her time of recovery, I asked her, how in the world did she get such a powerful network of support? And her response surprised me because she explained that she and her husband had made a decision in their 20s to invest in other people. And I just found that really unusual for somebody in their 20s to say, we are going to invest in social capital in other people to develop ourselves. They joined groups, they sought ways to serve others, and they were heavily involved with their church. The response, she explained, was that her spiritual capital investment was paying off. Now, what's interesting to me about Rachel is that particularly younger people don't think that they're going to be the one who's in need of health support, and yet they did that. I was so impressed with her clarity in deciding to do it ahead of time that it literally caught me off guard when she told me, we planned on that, we invested in people, and that we're grateful, but it was something we really thought about. Quick update on Rachel, because I have mentioned her before. She's pregnant with a second child, and she's now walked her first few steps. And I know this because she sent me a Christmas card, which is a way of staying connected, a tradition I have not done in 1,000 years. But it's an example, that she's updating her network, a good example. So I believe investing in community is really investing in our soul. Our connections teach us to value the needs of others. And that's how we build up heavenly treasures. But there are very practical here and now returns. So the temptation to get totally focused on the financial and the bodily investments, the health, those are powerful. And those, as I said, I'm not negating them. But there's also a temptation, I believe, that in our culture that I don't need those other people. I can do this myself. And what Rachel's story demonstrates, it's not a binary choice between investing in heaven or investing on earth. When we invest in others on this sphere, it is a good investment here, and it's an investment in our soul forever. If we decide to invest in other people by serving them in some capacity, we will be happier, healthier, and more at peace. When we invest in serving other people now, we're invested in becoming less self-centered, more compassionate, empathetic, and forgiving. In her last days, Helen, our past president, a single woman without any kids or a husband, would ask out loud, what if I never joined the church? Who would be with me now? And that's all because her neighbor, Malcolm, invited her to a book signing at the church. She spent the rest of her life investing in a community who invested back in her. And the overlap between the physical and spiritual worlds was made clear this past week when the church received a large bequest from Helen's estate that will allow us to serve others. So it's all connected. In the insight from Swedenborg this week, he offers an important insight into our spiritual investment. He writes that when we die, we leave behind our shell of a body and our wealth, and only our spirit moves forward. But what happens next is amazing. Now, most Christian religions teach that when you die, you stand before God, or you're in the grave for eternity till everybody's raised. But then they look at your book of life. If you've professed a belief in Jesus Christ, you are saved. If not, you are put into the fires of hell. In this view, spiritual investment lies in being with the right group, with the right beliefs, and proclaiming the right words. Swedenborg says something completely different. When we die, we gravitate to communities of people, angels who have lived on earth, who share the same loves and desires that we developed in our earthly life. Essentially, you are what you love. You might say that our spiritual destination is made up of millions of spiritual investments that we make every day of our lives. And when we leave this world, we spend eternity with those who share that love. Not the loves we publicly proclaim, but our deepest, truest loves. We need to invest our spiritual capital on earth in service to others. And in so doing, we develop a natural desire to be helpful and useful. And as we keep doing it, we're literally forging our deepest loves. The more we invest in that loving of others, it becomes easier, less of a challenge, and more the way we are. You could think of it as spiritual compounding interest. The realization helps shift our focus about what we're going to do for 2022 and where we're going to spend our time and money. But we can ask ourselves basic questions. Who needs us to call them this week? Who should we text to let them know we're thinking about them? How can we make this church experience that we have more inclusive to more people? Who should I invite to church? Investing in spiritual capital, just like financial capital, also leads us to ask, what investments should I pull back on? Where am I spending time and energy that doesn't feed my soul? Who in my life sucks away my energy? As we approach 2022, maybe rather than creating a list of resolutions, we can keep it simple and review our spiritual capital investment. Where can we do a little bit more? And what should we be pulling out of? We can be guided by the words of Christ. Where our treasure is, there our heart is also. The ultimate question of our life is not going to be how much money we had or what we weigh or how popular or famous we were. The real question is actually very counterculture. Did I make a difference in this world by serving others? In 2022, we have a chance to align our hearts and our investment and our time towards serving others and God. Let's invest in each other this year to make it a happier and more meaningful life, both now and forever. Amen.